Welcome, Supriya. Welcome, Bhavna. Welcome, Mr. Mansharmani, today on this panel. We have the other people on board here, Manoj Rana, who is my co-host for the session today, Rohini Suri, who is our Knowledge Committee head, Ruma Malik, who is founder member and one of the most active buying agents we have in our industry, and obviously our chairperson, Mrs. Christine Rai. I would actually invite Christine to just quickly welcome all our guests today, and then we can set off with having Supriya on board.
Well, good morning and welcome to this webinar today. The topic is return to work. What does that look like? I think for many of us, it is about understanding, where we are taking our businesses yet next. For many people, for our employees, for our colleagues, our co-workers, it is what is this workspace going to look like? For our vendor partners, our people in the industry, is what is this supply chain looking like? For our buyers, for our clients, what is the marketplace looking like? So I think for everybody, returning to work is a lot of different things. After over 2 months in pretty extensive lockdown, I think I just went out, I had to go somewhere today, and it felt a bit strange. You get out the car and you're like, oh, are these people too close? What should I do? So there's all that kind of, questioning, what's safe, what's not safe. And I think, we're trying, all of us, to deal with that. So we look forward to having Suresh, Bhavna and Supriya share with us some of their thoughts, their knowledge, their ways of coping. The rest of us are pretty much entrepreneurs and people who work. So we don't always have the right coping mechanisms. So I think it is about learning coping mechanisms, and we're all very excited to hear what you have to share with us today. And as the BAA, we welcome you very warmly and welcome all our participants. I can see we've got quite a few more on now, so we should be able to reach out to quite a lot of people. And as usual, we will record the session and it will go up on the BAA YouTube link. So those of you who miss it or you feel it's beneficial, please do share with your friends and colleagues. I think this is an important thing, and it is about helping each other at this time. None of us have done it before, so that's a good bit. We're all in the same boat. So it's about how do we help each other to get used to the changes, and the changes are going to continue. This is not it. There are going to be a lot more changes in our lives. So I think it's time to learn now how to cope with all of it. So thank you, and I'll hand over to our very competent moderators, Anshul and Manoj. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, before we go on with our panelists, for all the attendees today, whatever questions you may specifically have from any of the panelists who would be speaking one by one, I request you to put those questions in the Q&A section. We would be taking them up after the presentation from each of the panelists. The floor will be open for questions from all attendees towards the end of the entire webinar. So if in case you personally want to ask something from any of the panelists, that would be taken up towards the end of the session. I request at this point in time for all panelists also to please mute their mic unless they are speaking, so that the one who's speaking can be heard very clearly. Thank you. Okay, now I would like to introduce Supriya Dhanda. Supriya is the Vice President and Country Manager of Western Digital. She is leading India's strategic charter and its expansion, and serves as a spokesperson for the corporate brand for Western Digital in India. Her fusion of business acumen strategy and organizational development has really given a very high performance culture and strong growth for the Indian region of Western Digital. She has over 22 years of experience and has had several leadership roles in HR, and has also been an entrepreneur and anchored mergers and acquisitions. Prior to Western Digital, she was working with reputed technology companies including General Electric, Alcatel-Lucent, and SanDisk. She is a proud recipient of the recognition Top 100 Best Companies to Work for Women in India, Working Mother, and Avatar Study 2016 and 19. Supriya is also an ICF certified ACC coach and is passionate about coaching senior executives transitioning to CXO roles. She's very passionate about technology and people and strongly believes in equality at workplace and giving back to the community for building a sustainable future. So that's a little brief about Supriya. And Supriya today is going to talk about the responsibilities and the mindset of both the employers and employees today. As we're talking about getting back to work, one of the biggest stress in the system is for the employers how to get people back to work and offer them a safe working place. And at the same time, ensuring the business continuity is maintained. On the employee side, there is always an apprehension of going back to work. So Supriya is going to give us some good, fruitful points, which she's also incorporated in her work at Western Digitals, and how we as entrepreneurs can look at having people coming back to work. Supriya, the floor is over to you.
Thank you, Anshul. And Anshul, would you be displaying the slides?
I can do that for you right now. Just give me a second, Supriya.
Sure, not a problem.
Thank you, Ankit.
All right. So thank you, Anshul. Thank you, BAA. Thank you for a very warm welcome and a very warm welcome to all the participants. We are all living in very unpredictable times. This is something that we have not seen before. It's almost like if you look at the economy, we are challenged severely. And I will get to in a minute as to say what are the various factors that we are all seeing. But before I get there, I would say, I have all, it's like Anshul was introducing and saying 22 years, and I look back 22 years, wow, that's a long lifetime of lots of highs and lows, ups and downs, successes and failures. There are excellent, successful entrepreneurs on this call, on this webinar. And I say that with a lot of humility that I'm a failed entrepreneur. I tried my hands, delved into something, left the very comfort zone of corporate and thought I could make it. I couldn't make it. So there is a very humbling way of looking at the entrepreneurs when their world is so complex. You got limited resources, you got constraints, and yet you are the ones who are shaping the world. So if I look at what George Bernard Shaw says, the famous playwright, he says, there are these logical, reasonable people who would look at adapting to the world. And there are these unreasonable people who are looking at adapting the world to themselves. And all the change that happens in the world is resting on the shoulders of those unreasonable people. And in my mind, being a failed entrepreneur and a successful corporate executive, I would say the reasonable part perhaps belongs to the corporate, and the unreasonable part, is the territory of the entrepreneur. So salute to you, cheers to you, and I think we are having the entire economy rest on you. So now when we get to a moment and we talk about what is the world experiencing, I think we've all dealing with international territories. We've all had Europe, Western, Eastern, Americas, Australia, APAC, our entire world. For once I am seeing that there is an equalizer. If I pick up the phone and talk to someone in Australia, New Zealand, there is a sense of we are discussing the same issues. This living in the times of COVID-19 has kind of, unfortunately though, but brought us all together. Our boats may be different in size, but we are all dealing with troubled and charted waters. However, having said that, every challenge is an opportunity. We've read enough literature on that. I would say the fact that entire international community is feeling, I think there is a new wave of empathy. If I pick up the phone and I talk to, and I'm now interacting with my co-panelists at BAA, I realize that we are all discussing the same issues. Maybe we have a different way of dealing and you might deal with it differently, which is why webinars of this nature are very useful. We tend to learn from each other. But I think we all have the same problem at hand. Our solutions may perhaps look a little bit different. So if you look at the economy, I have never seen or heard of a lockdown. It's completely zero. I'm reading about some of the sectors where someone is recording that April sales was zero. It's easier said than done, but looking at your business and saying, my God, April was zero. Automotive sector was already dealing with a lot of issues. And now when you look at it, it's kind of gotten worse. The textile industry is different. The retail, all of us have been looking at going to the malls, and now all the brands are looking at coming out of the malls and going back to the streets. there is this fear of mortality. All of us have had aging trends. Okay, if you have this age, there is a high mortality. If you have this disease, but today, irrespective of that, we are looking at, is my mortality near? There is this entire issue of safety. So the way we are looking at now, that is the environment we are all dealing with. That is here to stay. All of us have a job at hand now to say, we've got to get used to it. I don't think the choice is there with us. So if you look at reading some of the books, and, reading is like, really personal to me, very passionate. You look at this book, Triggers by Marshall Goldsmith, because when you look at problems, you want to seek solutions, and solutions are either with people or in the knowledge base that they're perhaps written. The person says, this is, your fate is what is the deck of cards that you're dealt with. Choice is how you want to deal with it. So sometimes our choices are restricted and limited, but I would say, as a woman, as a leader, as a human being, I always feel there's a power of choice that we all have. We have a choice to look at the new normal. We have a choice to see how all of us are going to adapt to this new workplace, where there is a lot of physical distancing. There is a need to be able to understand and assess, is a handshake good or not? And perhaps not do it at all. Go back to our namaste of the Indian culture that we are so rooted in, and probably move away from those. I think if we choose to see this as a problem, this problem is going to be here to stay. The way we are looking at least in Western Digital India and some of the other industry, peers that I talk to, we just have to remove our filters and be ready for what is there facing us. So I think accepting new normal and knowing that it's here to stay is perhaps the first thing that anybody will tell us, that unless you accept, I don't think we are ready to look at a solution. If you look at the entire world, while the economy has taken a beating, there is another thing we are all facing. Everybody is working from home. And again, those are different connotations. For a technology company which has a great IT infrastructure, you can say my productivity is close to normal. But however, when you talk about MSME segment, when you talk about very different, you talk about the issue of migrant laborers, there is just no concept of remote working. So I think understanding that this remote working has different implications, because when you look at the MSME sector, you're looking at saying, what is the readiness of the IT infrastructure? Not everybody has a laptop as a device. The structure is probably different. Your employee base is different. And therefore, you got to look at that. You're acquiring new customers, you're establishing proof of concept. All of that is perhaps going to take a very different change now. When we are small, and we all say that in a large company, you need to have an entrepreneurial mindset, because that is the mindset that looks at more the opportunity than the problem. That is solution oriented than a complaint oriented. That has a very tightly knit bond with the work teams, and the culture is very, very thriving. So I think in social distancing way, our guidance is, as much as we need to be physically distancing, I think it's extremely important to stay socially connected, because nobody's asking us not to pick the phone and talk. I think we need to look at doing that differently. Entire digital, we've always said that IT infrastructure is our backbone. But if today we see, we're all connecting with each other, looking at each other, video is the new norm, your IT, your remote, laptops, your devices. So I think that is where our entire physical world has perhaps now moved to a digital world. But the beautiful thing is, with this webinar and others that I'm seeing, I think we're all making an attempt to connect. We're all making an attempt to learn from each other. And perhaps I would say the solutions are already in the work. So that, I would say, is a happy place after having faced a 2 months of lockdown. We can move to the next slide, Anshul. Thank you. So how is it that we can approach? And I'm very sensitive to the fact that before we put any slide work, we are conscious, like I said at the beginning, that what worked for us may work for you. A different version of that may work for you. A completely different thing may work. And this conversation may just spark off an idea. And that idea may be something that you may want to take home. There is no coming from a space to say, well, this is the way it's going to work. On a lighter note, we all talk about things being prescriptive. We haven't even found a medicine for COVID. So I think gone are the days when we say, we need to have a prescriptive approach. I think we need to have a trial and error approach, experimentation, fail fast, go slow to go fast later. I think these are the new buzzwords that we talk about. But one thing is very clear. That is where I pause and I look at it differently. If you read the book Becoming by Michelle Obama, she writes it beautifully and she says, each one of our individuals is carrying a story. My co-panelists are carrying a story. The hosts of this webinar are carrying a story. All the participants who've logged in are carrying a story. Everyone has a story. Every one of your employees is carrying a story. So I think taking a moment in a very fast-paced world of capitalization, profits, I think we need to take a pause, and this moment has given us a pause. Just take a pause, listen to what employees have to say. Listen to what your peers have to say. Listen to what your buyers, your agents, your customers, your clients have to say. We have been listening in the previous times, I would say pre-COVID, but I think it's a very, very big responsibility, I would say, to pause now and listen. The pause is already done by economy. The listening is, I would say, our choice. So tuning into the frequency of what our employees are going through. Everyone, like I said, has a story, and all they need is empathy. So earlier we would talk about, as leaders, as entrepreneurs, you got to have strategy. You got to have a great product or a solution. I think today we say, be a human being first. Listen to what the employees have to say. And rather than asking them, pushing them back to work, influence them. Understand that when some of us are stepping out of our homes, we are worried. We are worried if there's someone who's just sneezed. We are worried if the virus is in the air still. These are very human worries. So tuning into the human psyche of what everyone is going through, I think is going to be a fundamental requirement that these times are asking us to do. And I would say here, coming from a corporate which is large in number, sometimes the size is not to your advantage. But dealing with an MSME sector where perhaps the large employee base is not that much, and therefore the sweetness of the size, I think that is an advantage. It's perhaps good to pick up the phone, connect with those. It may be a great ask of your time. But honestly, in these times, being human and tuning into that frequency is something I would say extremely critical. Size irrespective, this is what we are also trying to do back home in our companies, to say, how is it that we enable managers to talk to each one of their employees, understand their personal circumstances, and also see that there is this entire inertia that our employees have gone in. Everybody's sitting at home. They look different. They've got beards. They've got different ways now. The timings have changed. So when the government tells us 100% clear, let's quickly get back to work. As much as we would like to get back to work, we are conscious that people have moved states. The state quarantines are have been applied. It's not easy to get everyone back. And therefore, knowing that there is an accelerated yet phased plan to get back to work, it perhaps going to be something that will work for us. Even if you have an employee base of 100, 300,000, 2,000, I think having that principled way of looking at valuing employee safety, and of course, looking at livelihood is going to be probably the mantra. I don't think it's either or. Economic lockdown, physical space lockdown happened for a reason. It happened because we were choosing to value lives. And now, fast forward 60 days, we all understand we have a business to run. Because if the business doesn't run, we don't deal with our cash flow issues. We don't get the supply chain figured out as to where the blockages are. And we kind of move to the digital way of working. We experiment, transact, we look at things being different. We will not be able to have a life to return to. So we are very conscious that this is the time to discuss with your employees, influence them, understand you have safety and health compliance norms to look at. If you have infrastructure constraint, you can always look at rostering your employees differently. Let's just, for the simplicity, take an example of 100 base. 100 employees, well, you need not get all 100 back, but you can always say 30 will come one day, another 30 another day and all. I think that is the experimentation, the trial and error that I'm referring to. And honestly, hand on my heart, nobody knows this better than an entrepreneurial mindset. Corporates do not succeed that well as much as entrepreneurs succeed. So if I had to place a bet on each one of you succeeding, I would say that's a higher bet than a large corporate machinery moving and succeeding. My vote is definitely on those who are tuning in here, and forums like this which are going to say that we succeed more. And a very important part of some of these things, I would say, while you're implementing safety norms, while you're rostering, while you are investing into sanitization, and those do come at a cost. So when I say this, I'm very mindful that cash flow is already restricted. And on top of that, you have to make investments in safety, regular hygiene, regular fumigation. These are going to come at a cost. But I would look at it a little differently. And again, it's a mindset. Number one, this is the need of the hour. The deck of cards is there. You've been dealt with it. Now you have a choice. And sometimes this is something that you have to do. So it's good to invest early and therefore build that, momentum back and accelerate and influence your employees. But also understand that over a period of time, everybody is going to remember this. Today, each employee, each of us have a story. Tomorrow, these are going to be anecdotes that our employees are going to talk about. That Anshul, that, someone else, these are people, Christine, they looked at me in such times, they valued, they paused, they heard what my children or what my parents or what my spouses, what was my spouse going through. And this is, I think, the foundation of a culture. Culture is not such a big thing that, one day you decide you want to have a culture. Culture is something that slowly gets created. And at entrepreneurial systems, MSMEs, the bonds are very strong. And I think this is the time to look at this challenge, turn it around into an opportunity, and invest early, small investments, but hopefully look at them as great investments to build bonds with your employees. I think that is what they're looking at, because safety is, everyone's response to safety is different. I may worry about my health more than my neighbor, and therefore there is no one size fit all approach. I think being prepared, being empathetic, and tuning in and listening, and of course, once in a while asking them their feedback to say, how do you think it's going? Do you think we can do something more? I'll pause here and share an example. Once we had this maternity program that we instituted, and it's our responsibility to look after our employees, pregnant mothers. But sometimes it was just a matter of just giving a stool, a small little wooden stool, because the feet tend to swell up and, the chairs are kind of high chairs, and, that was just not comfortable. And how much does a stool cost is what you can all do a math. It's a very simple investment. But every time we hear someone is pregnant, we would just look at giving a little stool so that the woman can rest her feet. And I can assure you, it went a long way in women looking at us differently and saying, here is an organization that cares. So everything does not cost huge. Sometimes it's the intent that matters, is what I would say. That is where I would say my focus as a leader is, and I would encourage all of us to focus. Open your mindset and be prepared to do things differently. We can move to...
Ankit, please move to next slide.
Thank you. So this is something that I'm already touching on. Hopefully, some of this is making, some, sense in terms of points. It's just looking at taking a holistic approach. Like I said, everyone has a story. Winston Churchill once said it beautifully. There is a crisis. We all know it. We are in it. But, if you don't learn from it, what a waste of a crisis. 60 days we've been locked down. 60 days our businesses has been in a pause and a still mode. But if today we come back to work and we behave the same way, but we haven't learned new things, new ways of doing it, new digital infrastructure that is staring us. There is so much of literature on what is digital. Does everyone need to have a laptop? We understand that the IT infrastructure is a challenge in some of these situations. The laptop penetration, device penetration may not be that great. Security protocols may not be that intense. With everyone connecting remotely into their devices, it is an issue. And therefore, work from home may actually be productivity loss. Factories may be shutting shop. But at the end of the day, as leaders, and like I keep saying, entrepreneurs know how to convert a challenge into an opportunity and therefore a profitable and a very good socially active business. I would say this is the time to look at a holistic approach. Look at an employee, the entire history of what the employee is going through. Sometimes there are, children less than 5, parents greater than 65 years of age who are staying with them. And I think this job is very important. The person is in a different state. I think putting approach to all of that and continuing still to look at your cash flow, to look at your supply demand. I think it's about taking a holistic approach, But putting people first, I think that is pretty much where I would say, I would place my bet and say that's a choice to make, and yet not losing sight of the business. Any decision we take, we say put people first, but all of us know there are some choices we make where people are not first. When we are having automation and we are closing factories, well, that's not a people first. When we are saying there is economic slow and therefore we need to let people go home, well, that's not putting people first. But those are tough decisions we need to take. And I would not say we shy away from those decisions. The point is, was that decision your first choice, or was that decision your last choice? Was that something that you did to save pennies now and burn pounds later? Or was that decision to save pounds because it was a very calculated, thought through decision, which you knew you were doing it for the long term, but not just to survive the grind? So I think those are okay decisions to do because they require for business to run. Sometimes you've got to cut a finger or two to be able to survive your whole body. And I think everybody understands that. But this is extremely important to take employees along and communicate your decisions. Sometimes we don't communicate to people. And I think this is where I say, keep your communication simple, lucid, easy to understand, but pick up your phone and talk to someone rather than hiding behind an email to say, this is something. And I think a lot of us have used technology sometimes to put filters on. I worry about that personally, because when people wish you, on a WhatsApp to say happy birthday, and I'm like, God, I miss that voice behind. And if someone gets on a video, I would love to see that smile, that my birthday means something to that individual. So I am still a very old school of thought, living in a contemporary world, but very rooted in my values of being human and being an Indian. And I think I take pride in that. So I would say, physically distance, keep your safety, worry about the employee safety, but don't hide behind this technological world and the tough decisions you need to make. And that is where I would say the government has a huge role to play. I think it's about time when someone walks the talk and understands that MSMEs have a genuine issue of cash flow, and please come forward with incentives and really make that life easy. A lot of Western countries are doing that, and I think India has a significant step to take in that direction. And I'm hoping that our government is doing. I'm very positive about the government, and I'm hoping they are helping those, because MSME sector is the one that is really going to add to the GDP of the future. It is not the large corporates. It is definitely not. So if someone hasn't understood this macroeconomics, I think they're in for a surprise, because this is the sector that's the boom, that's the growth, and therefore entrepreneurial MSME is the way to look forward to. Business continuity, I think our plans are challenged. All of us who made BCPs are looking at it to say, wow, PowerPoints look good, but the old American saying, the reality is, you make a great dish, but proof of the pudding is in eating. The reality is when the rubber hits the road and you say what miles you're going to travel. I think all our business continuity plans are in for a change. We haven't conceivably thought of a situation like that. And therefore, I would say, look at your new young employees. That is where I would close to say, this inclusiveness is not something big. We've all seen inclusiveness in facets of our personal lives. When someone gets married, comes into our lives, we see how we include them or we don't. I would say corporate is not very different. Our lives have huge stories to tell us, and therefore we need to learn from them. I think we need to be a lot more inclusive to the younger workforce, to the gig economy, where people are ready to spend a few hours and come in. That's a cost also, less impact on your cost. You don't have to have people in office. If someone is productive at home, look at that. I think someone said it beautifully, that the rich are buying, but the poor are creating. I think we need to have empathy for those and kind of, reduce the social class and the divide as much as we can. So if there is one time to be human, I think it is now. And that is not a rocket science. I think that is just operating from heart while keeping the business hat on. And I think that is an onerous task. But if you put your mind to it, and in India, I would say resilience is our DNA. We have done multiple things. We weathered storms, we weathered invasions. There is no way why we can't weather this COVID-19. We will succeed. We will be better. We will figure out our new business models, and we will have the entrepreneurial energy of the youth that we have. 70% of our industry, India, is youth, and we will turn this around. So all we have to do is dig your heels, sink your teeth, and stay positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Supriya. Thank you so much. It was indeed an absolutely fabulous thought process. And I personally say I very much relate to your saying that now is the time to take this as a choice rather than sitting and thinking about the fact whether we really want to go back to work. I mean, we know this is the new normal. And you so rightly said there is a paranoia around. People don't want to come to work. But I also firmly believe that now is the time when we have to get back to work, just not like the old times, but in a new way, taking all our due precautions and having all our checks and balances in place to make sure we're all safe and secured, we as people, we as employees, we as employers, everybody. So Priya, one question I do have to ask, you very well addressed the mindset of the employers and how we need to deal with it. However, there have been a lot of incidents, like a lot of industry friends have been calling and saying, people are now using this as an excuse not to come to work. And like the government did all those incentives, and what it did was to just kind of give the labor a reason to say, oh, we are getting our earning irrespective, so we should not be going to work. So, associations formed and union bazi happened and all of that happened. So let's not talk about the labor part of it, because that's a little more tricky to listen and to deal with. But what about our own people? I mean, how can we influence these people to at least get them to come to work without creating this as an excuse? COVID has kind of somewhere become an excuse of not coming to work, even when people are able to come to work.
No, very well said, Anchal. And thank you so much for taking the issue of the migrant labor out of it. Otherwise, I wouldn't know. I'll be like, oh, damn, what do I say here? But thank you for simplifying the question for me. What you're facing, what we are facing, we're all facing the same thing. I can assure you that when the lockdown started, I'm fairly transparent, but my husband is part of the MSME sector. He's an entrepreneur, runs two companies. And I'm leading this nice technology company, which is more an MNC outshoot in India. And both of our approach to work from home was different. I'm someone who believes in it. Once in a while, I try to log on. And my husband was like, I don't know. I called this employee, did not pick the phone. And I don't know what happened. It's been 2 hours. They haven't called back. And once he called and I was chatting with someone and the employee took the call from the bed. And he's like, what the hell? I mean, this is the CEO talking and how can you be on your bed? These are situations, and my conversations with him were very humble, humane. And I think the fact that we dialogue with each other and we discuss our business issues at home, I was only telling him the world, the corporate sector, IT services, all of that has been looking at work from home in a different way. It's not something new to us. However, the scale is unprecedented and the duration is unprecedented. We haven't dealt with something like this ever before. So we are struggling, of course, at one end, and we'd find ways to deal with it. But for you, I would say, just because an employee didn't pick up the phone or call, lie low, give time. People are going to take time to work from home and adjust to that. So therefore, there was this pause, hold, and kind of understand. Fast forward 60 days, now that inertia has set in. And that inertia of work from home, different timings to eat, get up, sleep, and maybe not so much of work, depending if your job cannot be done from home, then obviously you have been working less. I mean, that I think is something that's writing on the wall. Now, couple that with the fact that I have a mindset that, am I worried? Is my safety there? Is this organization looking at everything safely? Or is it that my, promoter or my CEO is not going to invest that much? So people often ask me to say, Supriya, I don't know what you're thinking. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm glad you don't know what I'm thinking, because if you knew what I'm thinking, I would be petrified, So I'm glad you don't know. The beauty is to ask. Ask your employees, what are you thinking? What's going on in your mind? There is no shortcut. So I think second judging, I would pause. I wouldn't get there. But I would say pick up the phone and talk to them. Listen to what they have to say. All of you are experienced panelists, and all of you are experienced people who are locking in. You would know by your intuitive understanding whether this is a genuine or not a genuine issue. A genuine issue, you will do your best to deal with it, but not so genuine issue. If it's a mindset or an inertia, I think 1 or 2 conversations will work. Let's fast forward to a third trend. If it is someone who's now comfortable because my paycheck is in and I don't have to work that hard, well, you have a tough call to make. I am never shying off a tough call to make ever. I would only want to make a tough call once I know I have been transparent, I've been logical, and I have given time and heard you. But I think just timelining it to say, well, this is the time when I would look at you back to work. And when you come in, let me know if your safety is threatened. I'm willing to listen to you. But this is the time and this is the week when I would expect you back, and maybe phase in by 2 days, maybe phase in a few hours a day. I think there are these combinations, giving the choice to that person. But if the person doesn't turn up, I think all of us know what we have to do. That is an unfortunate situation, but I would say, Anchal, not to worry about that, because in that case, you did not make the choice. That individual made a choice. So that is not resting on your conscience.
Yeah.
So I think having different approaches, but definitely going the empathetic way, and in the end, we all know what the final answer is. I would say that is the phased approach to this problem that I would take. I hope that answers.
I completely appreciate you saying that, Supriya. In fact, you know, it's food for thought for a lot of us here, because sometimes we do struggle to make the right decisions, but a very, very good and positive way of taking things. So thank you so much for the discussion today, Supriya. Manoj, I'd like you to take this forward now, please.
Thank you very much, Aanchal. Supriya, you really gave us some great insights as employers of small, medium sector, MSME sector. And there were some very nice points that we all will look forward to put into work practically while dealing with our employees. Now I would like to welcome Mr. Sureshman Sharmani, who is a 60-year-old, 20-year young with 42 years experience. That's what he prides in calling himself. He's a TEDx speaker, a motivational speaker, trainer, coach, mentor, serial entrepreneur, born in a refugee camp from a job of rupees 300 to establishing a 300 crore IPO. He was also awarded a presidential award for his services to the industry. He's very passionate serial entrepreneur, built many businesses. And today we would like him to guide us to face this unprecedented challenge in our lives, and gave us some great insights. Welcome, Mr. Sharmani.
Thank you, Manoj, for the introduction, and welcome all the participants, and so nice to be part of this panelists, and good morning to all of you. So about me, as Manoj already said, that I was born in a refugee camp. So from there to journey of being an exporter myself. So we were into garments for a long time. 25 years of my life we were in garment export, and we went public in 95, followed by a presidential award. So this Corona time is not new for me in a way, business-wise. My businesses before had been destroyed, 1 or 2 times. I had major failures. So this is nothing new for me. As an entrepreneur, we all go through such hard times. And as we build our resilience muscle, we are ready for these kind of situations. So world is divided into 2 phases now, pre-Corona and post-Corona. And this generation is going to live with these memories. I don't know how long it's going to take, 1 year, 2 years, or maybe more. I was reading a report yesterday that, even if the vaccine comes, it will not go away forever. It will just remain there. One of the, 5th viruses we have already. So a lot of industries, our world is going to change. It's not going to be the same. Let's accept this fact. I mean, if we're living with this hope that yes, it will be the same or it will be normal, no, it's not going to be the normal. Certain industries like, travel, hospitality, live sports, that 50,000 people in the stadium, I don't think we'll see in very near future. So those are the, few things going to happen to the world, and everyone must accept this. So some few concepts we must understand that adaptation is the key. So we must adapt to this current situation and acquire new skills, diversify if we have to, and multiple streams of income. Now, earlier I used to teach people to have focus, but I have taken a different approach. Now I'm telling them have a multiple stream of income. Fortunately, when I sold my public company and diversified into multiple businesses, so we have wealth management, we have e-commerce, and I myself became a trainer and a coach, realizing that we never go back into the situation where we have to deal with the 400, 500 or thousands of laborers and all those other difficulties, procuring raw materials, sometimes logistics, ports, infrastructure, India, Ports have no space if there is a demand and a lot of orders. So we got out of all that long ago with my wisdom and experience in Tajurba, as you can see behind me, the big thing Tajurba. So I've lived all those situations. So, live, on the minimum. We have to be minimalistic. And, I'm coaching couple of exporters. So one exporter example I would like to quote here, since you all are from the industry. So their turnover this March, they touched around 50 crore. And as the cancellation is happening and a lot of buyers are asking for the credit. So one thing I advise them is strictly no credit. If your buyer cannot get a credit from the bank, you are not the bank. So stay safe. Times are very, very tough and unprecedented. So no credit. Either buyer has to give 30% advance or letter of credit. So that I advise them strictly no matter the relationship is old. Recently, one of the buyer went bankrupt. 2 crore Laura Ashley, and the claim is the ECGC. And we all know what ECGC is, how long they take to pay you the claim. Of course, they pay, but they take long time. And with that, I told them to cut down the employees, slash your expenses, mercilessly, ruthlessly. Employees which are not performing at first stage, they will have to go. And employees which are part of your core team, talk to them, give them 25% cut. Maybe you can compensate them later, but talk to them as a leader, as an owner, and pay off all your loans. Moratorium or all things is eyewash. You're going to pay heavy interest cost, and then you're further, though your CIBIL or credit is not going to get hurt, but the banks are holding all the limits if you apply for moratorium. So the next time you go for any more funds after 3-4 months required, they're not going to give you. You are under their caution list. And banks are very, very cautious this time. My credit card limits are never delayed any credit card payment. And my CIBIL is over 850 or something. But it's cut down to 3 lakh limits or 5 lakh limits to 30,000 or 40,000 rupees. Without any reason, without any communication. So we're going through these times. So I told them to be prepared for 10 crore turnover. From 50 to 10 and set up your expenses around that. And they built good reserves over the last 1 or 2 years with my advice. So they are able to pay off all their loans. But a lot of people may not be in that situation. So they will have to find out something and diversify, like these people are doing now safety kits, which is very, very relevant. Supplements, very, very relevant these times. So they are diversifying into that. They are, fortunately, they have Ayush and cosmetic license. So beauty industry is also one of the top industry in my list of recession-proof businesses. So a couple of recession-proof businesses like, digital products, stock market. A lot of people say stock market is gambling, but it is not. There's a lot of now sophisticated tools available, algo trading and everything. And the market has moved. If you learn to day trade, I've seen people, my children have learned these skills and they are making money these times. Nothing, not a single day stock market was shut down. Everything was shut down, stock market was still, working there. Or as a trader, it goes down or up, you make money. You can make money. It doesn't matter it's going up or down. All right, so insurance, so that is gig economy. Another wonderful, people are going to outsource this Upwork and all these, marketplaces for employees are going to do well. So, in the end, I would like to say that, and I'm conducting a webinar on 4th of June. I'm bringing Director MSME Vijay Kumar and Assistant Director Karun Kumar on my webinar. There are over 1,000 people are going to participate MSME, and some of your people who want to participate, I'll send the invite. So I'm talking about all the recession-proof and industries, how to get prepared for these times and adapt to the changing times. These are very, very tough time, and it's survival of the quickest, not the fittest. So whoever moves quick and adapt to the situation fast is going to win. And there are opportunities in every situation. I have done that. I've moved my all coaching and trainings from stage. I was a stage person. Very happy to speak in front of 200, 2,000 people. But I'm doing webinar every day. And before I go to bed, I have some money in the bank every night. So I'm using this situation to my advantage. And another opportunity I have noticed that I was like a very, very limited to Delhi NCR. And if I had to do any seminar, I had to travel to Bombay or Siliguri, other places. But today my students are coming from all over the world, from New Zealand, Australia, Kuwait. So boundaries, it has become boundaryless. I see so much ocean of opportunities there that I said, wow, you know. So learn new skills, go into different things, and in the end, I would, say that every problem has a limited time span. Every problem, there was 1918 Spanish flu, there was World War, there was AIDS, things. This too shall pass. Grow bigger than your problem. If your problem is this, grow bigger. Today is the day in history when Edmund Hillary conquered the Mount Everest, 29th June 1953. 13 expeditions before that, and he also himself failed. And he made this wonderful statement that as a mountain, you cannot grow any bigger, but as a human, I can. So we all need to grow bigger than our problem. And I will end this talk with one word, and which I practice. It's not easy to do it, but I've practiced all my life this positivity. And that one word I'll leave you with is hope. When I sleep with a hope. I have a wonderful sleep. I'm 62-year-old with 20-year mindset. I reinvent myself. I'm very active with technology and social media. If you can see my Facebook page, YouTube channel, and other things. So I sleep with a hope that my tomorrow is going to be better. And when I get up in the morning, I say this day is going to be better than yesterday. And that hope keeps me going. And keep your hope alive, and you will survive, you will thrive, and you will win. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's such a positive note, and what a cheer it brought. The hope, yes. Hope and the ability of the entrepreneurs here will always win the day. The ability of the Indian people and the courage that they have in these times is definitely. And at our age, I think we've seen it all, been there. And now it's just it's a wonderful world to be in this transition, and we're looking forward to new things and new tricks and new games and great business opportunities coming up for all of us. Nice, great, thank you.
Thank you so very much. Any questions? I'm open to questions now.
Sureshi, we'll take up the questions later after all three panelists speak.
All right, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Manoj?
Yeah.
Manoj, would you have any questions with Sureshi, or shall we move on with Bhavna?
I have one question with Sureshji.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
How would you suggest post-COVID, we as leaders start moving out without having any fears and set examples for our employees? That takes away all their fears.
There are a couple of safety gears are coming. With those, taking those precautions, we can definitely move out. World is not going to stop. So few things. One of my clients are also coming up with a whole safety kit with your gloves, with your mask and the shield over your face. So a couple of things we need to change, but we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop. No way.
Okay. All right, Achal.
Thank you, Manoj. Thank you, Sureshi. I would like to now introduce Bhavna. One sec, there's some noise that we're getting. Just one sec, let me.
Ruma needs to mute herself.
Yeah, I'm just muting everybody. Yeah.
Sorry, while we're doing this, I would ask Suresh, could you post your June 4th webinar details, or how do we sign up? I see a lot of people on the chat are already raring to listen to you again. So if you could put that on the chat, Suresh, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Introducing Bhavna. Bhavna Videra is the Vice President of Shiv Khera Group. She's the co-chairwoman of CII IWN, which is the Women's Network Delhi chapter. And Bhavna, actually, I would share with the entire attendees, she's the daughter of esteemed Mr. Shiv Khera. So she definitely has some really, really great perspective and upbringing into mindsets. Bhavna started her career with Arthur Andersen in New York in 1998 as a strategy consultant. She then went on to take traditional businesses online in both B2B and B2C spaces, transforming the way they did businesses at in time. Today, she's helping businesses become profitable by merging strategy and technology together. She helps organizations grow by integrating values and attitudes to change mindsets. And that's exactly what Bhavna will be speaking for us today, to kind of address the mindset issue or the mindset shift that Supriya has already spoken about, and what more can we do from the body-mind balance perspective for all the employers and employees of the MSME industry. Bhavna, can I request you to come and share your views with us now?
Thank you so much, Anchal. Thank you very much. Suresh, that was very motivating. And Supriya, there's a lot of resonance. I think you're going to find that today. Anchal, Manoj, Christine, Ruma, everybody. Roshni, thank you so much for inviting me. So today I'm here, I've been invited to speak about the mind-body connection. And in that context, I think I need to start with two words that directly impact the mind-body. The first one is success, and the second one is stress. If you look at your life, is there anybody you can think of who would not desire to be successful? All of the entrepreneurs sitting here today, you know, Ruma was talking about everybody, every single person, the entrepreneurs, the buying agents, is there anybody who does not decide to start their lives, start their careers, start their businesses on the hope, as Sureshji said, of success? So success is the desired state of every individual today. What is the feeling state of success? Success means I feel confident. When I achieve a level of success, I feel happy. I feel confident within myself, within my abilities, my ability to achieve something. What is the underlying cause of success? If you look at it, there are two causes. One is skill set. The other is mindset. Now, skill set we acquire, right? Like Sureshji just said, we can talk about trading. Yeah, you will acquire the skills to become the trader, right? What is will? Will is down to mindset, okay? Now, what is mindset? Mindset is actually two things. It is values and it is your attitude. And most of this, actually, studies have found that most of this set is already set by the time we're 14, 15. And in fact, like you mentioned, yes, my dad knew this. And so therefore, when I was 12 years old, I was actually sent to a Zig Ziglar Born to Win program when I was 12. And absolutely right. So these values and attitudes, they are set from a very young age. And unknowingly, we are absorbing them, you know. Now let's come to the other factor. The other factor is stress. And really today, I can't even think of a 4-year-old who is not feeling stressed. The mother is stressed, that 4-year-old is sitting with the phone of the mother, they are feeling stressed. A child doing virtual homeschooling today, they are stressed, okay? And a boss, an entrepreneur, an employer, he's feeling stressed. Everybody's in the same boat, we've all said that. But stress is not leaving anybody behind, rich or poor, old or young, wealthy, connected, powerful, it doesn't matter, you know. Stress is impacting every single person. The employer needs to think, where is my cash flow? You have to make hard decisions. Who do I lay off? You know, if my well has dried up, how am I going to be able to support other people's wells? The employee is feeling so insecure, so threatened, and saying, what do I do? Do I even have a job tomorrow? And if I have that job tomorrow, am I going to have a pay cut? Most likely, yes. If I have a pay cut, how much is that pay cut? And if I have that pay cut, then I need to think, am I going to be able to afford my children's education? You know, if I have 4 mouths to feed or 6 mouths to feed, even if I have parents living with me, will I be able to afford it if my employer cuts 25%, 50%? Can I do it? You know, so stress is everywhere. Now, let us ask ourselves, what is the feeling that goes to stress? Stress, when we are plagued with stress, what happens to our thinking? The ability to think really and make good decisions goes down, right? We feel overwhelmed. We feel out of control. So many times you find yourself just becoming short. I'm snapping at my child. Why am I snapping at my child? Because I'm saying, oh my God, what the hell am I going to do? You know, Another problem causes stress, and who do I take it out on? Take it out on my family, right? So what's happening? That's making relationships toxic. So we have to think about, how do I handle my stress? And if you look at actually what is stress, stress is only the inability to process life's events, experiences, and challenges. That's all stress is. And the minute we can understand and figure out how do we do that, I think we're all going to be happier and far more successful people. Now, stress actually has two components. It's not really a bad word. One, stress can be very motivating. A little bit of stress. If your child knows he has an exam coming up on Monday, guess what? He might just actually stop playing his Nintendo Switch or his PS4 and say, or get off his video games and say, Mom, I actually think I might open a book. You'll be like, really, son? Okay, that's wonderful. So a little bit of stress can actually be great, because when that child then decides that he's going to study because of that exam coming up, then he prepares for it. And when you prepare for stuff, you lose that feeling of out of control to a sense of, I'm prepared, now I can handle things, right? The more debilitating form of stress is chronic stress. That is the stress which is really difficult for us to deal with. And that is the stress that has a direct impact on the mind and the body. Every single day, if you are plagued with that stress, if you are carrying that load on your back, that burden, the overwhelming feeling, the anxiety, the fear, if you are carrying that, then that is going to impact your body. A mind that is not able to cope, as Christine mentioned, right? You talked about the word, how do we cope with this, Christine? A mind that is not able to cope is going to end up being a body that is diseased. 70%, doctors in the US have said 70% of illness is psychosomatic. What is psychosomatic? Psycho, mind. Somatic, soma, body. That's it. It is time for us to learn how to increase our level, our chances of success, no matter what the environment. And we need to figure out a way to cope with our stress, to reduce our stress. And remember, every single person here is a leader. Every single person in their capacities, at home, at work, in whatever way, you are a leader. And where does culture start? Culture starts at the top. So you can set the culture, the tone for your homes, for your families, for your businesses, for everybody. So don't disempower yourself. All right, now I'm going to start with giving you 7 steps. If there's anybody who'd like to note this down, you are more than welcome to. I always love making notes, so grab a pen and paper, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share with you my 7 tips for how do I, increase my chances of success and reduce my stress. Are we ready? Shall I start, Anshul, with the 7 steps? All right.
Absolutely, please.
So the first step is to accept responsibility. What do I mean by that? I mean, first and foremost, stop blaming people. Stop blaming your mom, your dad for your problems. Stop blaming your employer for your problems. Stop blaming everybody for your problems. They are yours. Accept responsibility for them. The minute you move from blame, you shift the power into your own hands. So stop giving the power to your life to somebody else. Accept responsibility. Tied very strongly to accepting responsibility is, are you problem focused or are you solution focused? And now this is the question. We harp and harp. Arey, difficult times, cash flow problems, ye aa gaya. You know something? Everything is going to happen in your life. Problems are a sign of life. That's it. You're alive. Arey, thank God you have problems. Imagine if you didn't have any problems, you'd be dead. Would you rather trade places with somebody in the cemetery? Not at all. So say thank you, God. You gave me problems, but guess what? You gave me a new day. I'm now going to focus on what are the solutions I can create. So shift your mindset. That will help you cope. Shift your mindset to saying, how am I going to stop harping on my problems? And how am I going to start focusing on creating solutions? That will immediately reduce your level of stress. The problem-focused person lives in what? The stress state. The solution-oriented person lives in what? The success state. It's all mindset. If you want to have a healthy mind, healthy body, start coping. Start getting a handle on your stress. Number 2, audit your self-talk. What do I mean by that? That means, am I positive or negative? Everybody has that voice in their heads. Is that voice empowering you, or is that voice disempowering you? You know, is it building you up, or is it bringing you down? Ask yourself, when I speak to myself, am I kind? Am I supportive? Am I building my own self-worth, my belief? What can I do? Ask yourself. Or am I just absolutely shredding myself and saying, I can't do it? Now here, I want to share with you the example of Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was brilliant. Not only was he a champion boxer, but he illustrates mindset. So what was he doing? Every single day that he went in to train, you know what he said? He said, I'm the greatest, I'm the champion. I'm the greatest, I'm the champion. I'm the greatest, I'm the champion. What was he doing? He was psyching himself up. Every single day that he went into that ring, he was training, he was punching, and he was going, I'm the greatest, I'm the champion. I'm the greatest, I'm the champion. I'm the greatest, I'm the champion. Guess what? Where was he a champion first? Right here. In his mind, he had determined the outcome. The match came much later. The heavyweight championship came much, much, much later. He was a champion right here. So, are you setting yourself up with your self-talk? Are you setting yourself up for success, or are you setting yourself up for failure? Ask yourself. Number 3. All right, get on a continuous learning program. I cannot even stress the importance of this. In You Can Achieve More, there was a study found, and they basically interviewed millionaires and billionaires. And they found that 85% of millionaires and billionaires are actually first generation. Only 15% had inherited their money. And these people were asked, what one single habit do you attribute your success to? If you had to, you know, there are obviously many attributes, but if you had to say one single habit that you really think is responsible, the root of your success, do you know what they came back with? They all said reading. Then they were asked, well, how much do you read? Jim Quick says, on average, people read 1.5 to 2 books a year. Do you know what these people read, the millionaires and billionaires? A book a week. What does that mean? That's 50 a year. 50 a year. There is no shortcut to success. Success is not a chance game. Success is not a fate game. Success is a choice. Success is hard work. Success is commitment. There is no shortcut to success. People who are looking for overnight successes, Beyonce, music sensation. She prepares 8.5 months for a 2-hour performance. That's called an overnight success? Come on, that's not an overnight success, right? So commit to your own learning, commit to your own growth, and commit to your own success. All right. Number 4, live authentically. What do I mean by that? Well, many times in our lives, including myself, I have put on a front. And I realized I was not comfortable with the front. And that front was fake. How long will you keep pretending to be somebody you're not? How long will you do that? How long are you going to tie your self-worth to your net worth? Does it matter whether you have the best Mercedes, the latest Apple iPhone? And if you are keeping up with the Joneses, are the Joneses paying your bills? Be practical. And if you are keeping up with the Joneses, and that is what is giving you your sense of validation, you will always take it in writing right now, you will always be stressed. There will always be people bigger than you, better than you, more richer than you, whatever. It doesn't even matter. The point is, at what stage are you going to start equating your own sense of self-worth, your own self of authenticity, the courage to be yourself. And you know something, when you have the courage to be yourself, people are going to like you for who you are. It doesn't matter whether you have 5,000 Facebook friends, or if you don't even have 5 friends you can call in the middle of the night. What are those what? How does it matter? Ask yourself. So is my sense of self-worth coming from my sense of myself, my authenticity, my truth, my courage, the space that I have allowed myself, given myself the permission where I say, I'm okay to be me. Number 5, live from your priorities. We all say, oh, family is so important, family is so important, family is so important. We work like 12 hours a day and we keep saying family is so important. And when we come home, we are dead tired. And when we come home, we're ready to burst on them. ठीक है ना, मत बात करो, चलाने लग गो. Oh my God, अरे, is this priorities? COVID has given you a chance. It's the best opportunity, dude. Get on, start living from those priorities. Start nourishing your relationships. Start engaging with your children. Start connecting with your friends, your family, your workers. This is the most powerful time. It is the biggest opportunity you've been given to build connection. Start living from your priorities. Number 6, and I do this every day, I give thanks. I have a gratitude journal. First thing I get up, I write 5 things I'm glad for. It could be just the very simple fact that this morning, God, I woke up. I woke up, I opened my eyes. That means, guess what? I have 2 eyes. I have this wonderful body. Body, you're still here? Yes, you are. I have this body, it's still fit. I have a roof on my head. I have 3 square meals. What does giving thanks do? It does 2 things. 1, it builds your humility. It keeps you anchored. You know, everyone needs an anchor. Even a tree to be solid needs an anchor, right? So even in the storm, a tree that is well anchored does not break, it bends. Why does it bend? Because its roots are deep and wide. Be the tree that is anchored. Now, what is the second thing it does? And this is where mindset shifts. You move from a space of lack, of not having. I don't have. The complainer, ye bhi nahi hai, paise nahi aa rahe, ye nahi ho raha. You move, you shut that person up. And you move from a lack mindset to an abundance mindset. Because suddenly you have things. You have just listed 5 things you're grateful for. Guess what? You have abundance. Are you choosing to see that abundance? That is the choice. Huh? And the minute you start recognizing your own abundance, the more and more abundant you are going to be. Like attracts like. Remember that. So the more you vibrate in your abundance mindset, you are going to attract people. You're going to attract opportunities, whether that means transformation of your business. Or if the customer doesn't want what you had, doesn't matter. You can change. Who's stopping you? You can transform. If your business is not ready to be tech savvy, it can get ready, right? Who's stopping you? So everything is possible for the abundance mindset, for the person who thinks he can. What's going to get you there? Gratitude. All right. Now, number 7. I too, maybe this is a woman thing. Supriya also talked about life of cards and life being, a game. It is, to me too. Life is a game. It's a game of cards. We absolutely do not control where we were born. We do not control the color of our skin. We do not control COVID. There are a number of things that we do not control. Okay. But there is choice. And here I want to introduce you to the Serenity Prayer. I have done this. My father's done it for, God knows, 35 years. I have, for the last 3 years, been doing it religiously every single day. And it's the Serenity Prayer. And it goes like this. Dear God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. Let me repeat. Dear God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So yes, let's dissect this. What is this saying? It's saying, one, let me make peace with what I cannot change. There are things that I cannot change. If there is something happening in my life that I have no control over, let me recognize it and accept it. The more I fight it, what am I doing? I am raising my level of stress. If you think you can control your children, if you think you can control your cash flow, if you think you can control your employees, you're wrong. So the minute you start recognizing that the only person you have control over is yourself, and you start accepting that other people are going to live their lives from their own mindsets, what do you have to do? Keep fighting? Or ask yourself, my mind, my body, is it worth it? No, it's not worth it. Start accepting. And don't accept begrudgingly, because that's not acceptance. That's a resistance state. Accept with grace. Accept graciously. No begrudgment. Dissolve your begrudgments. Courage. Courage is choice. God, grant me the courage to make the right choices. God, grant me the courage to pull myself up when I'm feeling low. God, grant me the courage to make the right decisions. Let me do right by my business. Let me do right by my employees. Let me do right by my family. Let me do right by my customers. If they need different things from me, let me transform myself. Give me the courage to do that. And courage you shall have. The wisdom to know the difference. Here, this is where it is critical. For as long as you mix these two up, you will keep banging your head on a brick wall. And the more you bang, the more stress you'll have. The more you bang, the more stress you'll have. So now, choice is yours. I'd like to end this with a quote from George Bernard Shaw. He says, life is not about finding oneself. Life, I'll repeat this. Life is not about finding oneself. Life is about creating oneself. God bless everybody here on this webinar today. Go off and make magic. Create amazing, amazing lives. Thank you so much.
Bhavna, that was
Brilliant.
fabulous. Absolutely.
Totally rocking.
Totally amazing, Bhavna.
Thank you so much.
I can't tell you how much I believe most of us would relate to it. And as we say, it's not that we consciously don't know things, but sometimes we always need these positive reminders to get back into action, to really do those things that we're supposed to do. But in this entire life, in this rail of life, we forget to do certain things. So happy to have these 7 pointers. I've written them all down, so I'm going to make sure that we send this out to everybody who wants them.
People are asking for those 7 pointers, Bhavna. So can you run the 7
And we have the recording.
We have the recording. So we're going to
have them recorded, Ruma.
Yes.
All the 3 panelists have been brilliant.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Thank you all so much. Bhavna, we have a question with you. One of the attendees,
I'm sorry?
Shilpi Kohli has asked a question saying, how do you deal with egoistic minds? And that's a very interesting question, actually.
Very
If
good.
you'd like to answer that.
Oh my God. Oh, that's a wonderful question.
Yeah.
And I think ego is very, for as long as you combat from your own ego, you will have issues. The minute you accept that person for having that ego and say, okay, that's part of them. But what do? You bring yourself into a state of higher wisdom, higher awareness, higher compassion. And you start, imagine, you know what, if you talk to that person with one thought, imagine if they were your mother, how would you speak to them? That instantly, what it does is it takes away the battle of the ego and it makes you fill yourself with a space of love and compassion. And that is what that ego is requiring, actually. If you look at egotistical people, what do they have? They have a very strong need to prove that they're right. They're highly insecure. They're narcissistic very often. And so you need to actually just counter it and say, okay, what am I going to do for this person? And how am I going to hold the space such that they can be free to be who they are? I don't need to judge them. Okay, TK, they are egotistical. There are all sorts in this world, right? That's all right. Allow them the space to exist. Just learn how to handle them. Handling difficult people is the trick. That's it.
Thank you, Bhavna. Yeah. I mean, you know, frankly, something that probably all of us deal with today, but that's a very positive way of looking at things to say, yeah, I mean, they have a right to survive. They have a right to exist. Let's just learn to deal with them and just let on with our life. Brilliant, brilliant. Absolutely. All three of you, thank you so much. You've done a wonderful, wonderful job today. I will pass the floor over to Manoj now to take up questions from people. We have some questions on the Q&A panel and people are also raising their hands to ask questions. Manoj, over to you now.
What a great insight about life, I must say. That was very, very resounding and very motivating. And thank you all the panelists once again.
We should have started 40, 30 years ago, right?
I know.
Yeah.
Never too late.
Never too late to start. Never too late to start. I totally agree with
There's
that.
always a time for wisdom to sink in.
Yeah, we're running out of time, Manoj. You want to pick some of the questions?
Yeah, so I have a Mr. Asad Shamshi. He wants to ask the first question to the panelists, and I would request all the attendees to raise your hands so that I can keep calling you guys for asking the questions.
Manoj, you can probably call out Asad's question because he's not raised his hand, so we can just read out his question on the Q&A.
Yeah. I don't have the question. Can you?
Okay.
I can read it out. I have it here.
It's to Suresh Ji. What he's saying is, according to your viewpoint, we should be very careful as exporters and give no credit to customers during these times. But on the other hand, we already have some customers who have been working with us pre-COVID on credit terms of 30 to 45 days now. How do we go back to them and convince them that all of a sudden their payment terms of 30% advance or LC, whereas they're requesting us to give them more credit during these times to help them? In fact, a lot of buying agents are also calling or writing to us and requesting us to offer credit to the buyer to help in current crisis. How do we deal with this?
Asad, that question is from Asad?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, Asad, listen carefully. One of my clients, I have mentioned, they are into the export. Their client went under 2 months ago, Laura Ashley. They were dealing with that client for last 7 to 8 years. And their 2 crore rupees are stuck there. And these times, as we see, are very, very unprecedented. When, where happened, what slowdown happened, which store. JC Penney is filing for bankruptcy. I mean, what a company it used to be. They are filing for bankruptcy. So secure yourself, you know, be safe. And remember always, you are not a bank. You know, normal time it was okay, but these times, just be safe. It's okay to do less business than giving credit, because if they go into chapter 11 or chapter 12, if they are in US, or they go into bankruptcy, you have nothing to fall back on. You have nothing to fall back on, you know. So it's okay, be frank. I mean, if their bank is not financing them, who are you to finance them? If they can't get letter of credit from their bank, then you can't finance them. You are not a bank. I'm very clear on my thoughts here, doing business in a pure business way.
I'd just like to add one thing here. Asad, remember the cost of money in India is much higher than the cost of money in Europe and America. Tell them that.
Absolutely, Roma.
Please tell them that the cost of money will make sure that will make your product more expensive for them. Tell them that their cost of money is much lower in America and Europe than you.
Absolutely. So if they can't borrow at 2% or 3% or 0% interest, then they expect us to borrow at 15% or 10%. Not done.
Absolutely. It's
And
not right. They're not partners. They're not partners in your business.
And it's risky these days, you know.
It's very risky, and if they want you to partner them, then they have to partner you.
Yes.
So I have another question, Sureshji, from you. I have a client, I've been working with him for 15 years now, and he faced the same issue as me, and he said that I need help from the factories. Now, as an agent, what should I do? I have to keep client happy. I have to make sure factories paid in the end. Then what should be, as an agent, our strategy in this case?
See, the agent situation is very, very, you know, crucial and delicate here. But in the end, and especially our country, if the client goes out of business, the exporter is going after the agent.
Yes.
Exporters are going to go after the agent. They'll file criminal cases. They will do whatever to recover whatever the agent has. So, you know, you be safe and take care of your exporters first.
I think it is something which is on case-to-case basis. In certain cases, you need to judge the client and see whether it's really a genuine request or it is something which is just making, like a lot of retailers have taken this as a, how do I call it? As an opportunity to delay their payments.
Manoj, I have done business with West for 25 years. I understand the mentality there. If the times are tough, if someone has to die, they will say, better you die. I will survive.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
So be safe.
Next question is from Mr. JP Singh. Mr. JP Singh is there? Or I can read out the question.
Yeah, read out. I think
read it out, Manoj.
Sureshji, also, for a small setup, most of the people are at ground level and they do multitasking, and every one is important. There is no middle level management for like a very small exporter he's talking about. And if there is somebody unhappy, how do they like take care of employees at that level? Because they don't have middle management level or staff. They have either labor or the top management.
Yeah. See, as a leader, as a founder, as a CEO of your startup, it's your responsibility to be very, very transparent with your people. A small story, when I was doing job work for exporters and I didn't get paid. I did not have money to pay to my labor. Out of fear, I did not go to my factory for 2 days. I was sleeping in the park. And when finally I had courage to go to them and tell them, I haven't got the money to pay you. This is the situation. They all went with me to the exporter to request that please pay. And we got our money. So be transparent with them and, you know, connect with them from here, that these are the tough times. Operate and give them whatever little bit, you know, you can give it to them from your resources. Be with them. They'll realize I've dealt with 400 laborers. I've worked with them for 3 nights, 5 nights in the factories. They connect with the owners who connect with them.
And plus, like Supriya said, to listen to your people, whether you are top management and don't have middle management, is very important. The more you connect with them, the more they come aboard with you.
Yes.
The next question is for Bhavna. How would you suggest we take decisions during these times and make sure they are effective? I mean, in current time, as an entrepreneur.
Now we think you have, now Bhavna, you're expected to have all the answers.
And I was looking at the question as Manoj is reading it, and I'm saying, am I reading the right question? He's saying, how does one balance between personal, family, and work? And then Manoj is saying, how do we make effective decisions? But actually, it's actually, look, it comes down to understanding what is the need of the hour, okay? Effective decision making actually means, look, when you have long lead time items, you can set those going and then you can kick on with other stuff. What you need to identify is what is important in the now. And then you also need to identify what is important a year from now or 6 months from now. When you make that kind of decision, you work backwards and you say, okay, if this is where I need to be 6 months from now, what are the decisions I need to take today that are going to actually enable me to be the person or achieve the goal that I want to have, that I've set for myself 6 months from now. So that is one way of making decisions. The second is, so that is looking at your goals or who you want to be or whatever it is, your measure of success that you want to achieve. And then you work backwards and say, okay, what do I need to do today? And that may end up actually making a call that, look, I need to work 8 hours a day. I need to work 12 hours a day. I need to change the way my business is going. If I'm not on digital platforms, I need to learn how to go on platforms. I mean, I remember when I first did this in 1998 with Samsung. I mean, that time, you know, nobody was on this whole digital thing. It was really new. And we were taking businesses online. And so, you know, there are a lot of people, I'm sure, in your sector who are you know, looking to actually get on that platform and look at how technology can enable their businesses and take them, maybe build connections with their customers or, you know, whatever they need to do, but they'll need to transform the way they do business. The second thing is decision making is never in isolation. It is always keeping other factors in mind. So for example, if your child is needing something right now, you know, or you have a sick parent that you absolutely need to take to the hospital today, guess what? That's going to take priority over anything else. So decision making is a very much present moment thought, okay? While goal setting is a future vision thought. But everything motivates your decision today. You understand? Was I clear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, Manoj, I have a comment
Actually,
to
took
that.
another question before the personal work-life question. Actually, that's what happened.
Yeah.
So next is Sanjay.
Manoj,
Khurana.
one sec. Supriya has something to say on this decision-making thing. Supriya, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Anshul. Just had a comment. Bhavna has obviously answered it beautifully. But you know, there is something about decision making I just thought I'll share. It's about knowing your first principles. I think if you don't have, like you very beautifully said, the tree has to be anchored and you need roots. So I think getting your first principles correct is extremely important, and they can be different for different somebody. Like Bhavna said, your family is a priority. Don't lie to yourself. If family is a priority, but you're acting on work, that's the difference. Then your decisions are not in alignment with your principles. Might as well tell yourself, I'm ambitious, I'm cutting edge, I want to be number one in the world, and I don't care, I'll do it at the cost of my family. That goes back to her again guidance, be authentic. You gotta be authentic with your first principles. Lie to no one, but definitely don't lie to yourself. Sureshji said, I mean, your cost is critical. Your credit lines are stretched. Why? Don't say, I'll call you tomorrow, I'll do this. Don't say, I cannot do it because my survival is first. If I survive, I'm hoping you can survive too. So I think having your first principles and having the conviction to believe in them and communicating from a place of confidence, those decisions, I think are kind of things that go together. So I would say get your first principles right and get the courage to communicate them. That is simplified decision making. Leave the outcome to the environment or God or someone else.
Absolutely.
You can only do what you can do. But I wouldn't be saying that Bhavna has the recipe to do decision making that is perfectly 100% successful. I think we all need to be responsible to live with consequence management of decisions that do go wrong. And be kind to forgive yourself. I think it's an entire recipe that goes together. It is not either or. So thank you for that. Thanks, Anshul.
Supriya, you said a very powerful thing. Can I just add one thing? She said something which is absolutely true. You know, you're only free till the point of choice. You are only free till the point of choice. But once you make a choice, the choice makes you. Absolutely, you have to bear the consequences or bear the fruit. Thank you.
You know, Bhavna, sorry for this, but just one point. It's lovely. It shouldn't become a dialogue. But it's like knowing
Why
what
not,
is
Supriya?
We will connect offline for sure.
Definitely.
I love your thought. It's knowing what is right to do is the difficult part. Once you figure that out, not doing it is the easy. Because then once you know what to do, you're going to be propelled towards doing that. So figure out what's the right, because the rest will take its own beat and will move and flow. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Supriya and Bhavna.
Thank you. Next is, I think, Sanjay Khurana. He had a question. Sanjay? Sanjay, you there?
I have
He got the
unmuted you.
question.
I believe you have to unmute yourself, please. Yeah.
Can you hear?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Just speak up a little bit.
Good afternoon, everyone, and it was lovely session. And in fact, I raised my hand when Supriya was talking about the choice to be made, and I got her answer, which was like not a positive choice, but at some stage you have to take that choice, and which is unfortunate, as Supriya mentioned. And besides that, everything has already been answered by all the panelists, and it was lovely listening to everyone, and it was actual life experience which we all need at this time, and it is truly motivating and very nice session. Thank you. I got my answer. Thank you.
Great. Tanya, you had a question with the panelist.
Yeah.
Tanya Bhatia.
Hi. Good afternoon, everybody. It's been a great session full of enriching words, a lot of wisdom here, and I have to admit that I had a few questions noted down for Bhavna ji, but along the way, all my answers are questions rather are answered, and all the answers lie within, and the only thing I need to do now going further is see your video and listen to you again and again and get the get motivated. But I do have a question for Supriya. I was totally emotionally carried away by your approach of thinking from the heart. And in the current times, we are promoting the work from home scenario for our employees. And I just would like you to give us some tips on how to monitor the work from home scenario, given the fact that we have social and cultural differences compared to the West here in India, especially in smaller towns in India, in different parts, and sometimes your employees are in different places. So any tips, any suggestions on how to make them more accountable, responsible, and get the monitoring?
Sure. Thank you for asking that. And I'm glad a lot of this is hopefully resonating with all of you. This is again simple. That's what I look at life to see. Early on in my 10 years, I'd love to complicate everything, look at jargons. And then the next 10 years, I ended up simplifying it. So it's very simple to say, and I know simple is not easy. Trust me, it's what you eat and what you exercise. I mean, all of us have an issue of putting on weight. So simple is not easy. Don't get me wrong there. I think its productivity is there on top of all of our minds. So it all comes back again to say, what is your employee's goal? What are you expecting that employee to do? Again, being very lucid and clear on that to say, these are the 3 things that the employee can do from home. And I think prioritization, time management and prioritization are simple words, but I think we end up not utilizing. This is the time of COVID-19 where we need to be very, very clear that the employee cannot do 10 things, but can definitely do 3. So I think looking at scoping all of that is one clear, I would say, having an agreement with your employees to say, what are the 3 things that you're going to do, or 3 or 4, whatever the number you find comfortable and it's accurate for your context. Having timelines to that. Sometimes the employers tend to give fuzzy guidelines to say, hey, why don't you do this? And you realize sometimes employees are different. Some need a lot of clarity, some need less clarity. Some work better with micro supervision, some like, a telescope. So whether your employee is microscopically wanting to be, managed or telescopic, I think you have to figure that out. And the only way to do that is be in touch with them. The third is going to be having some outer boundaries. These are not very intruding boundaries, but let's say the timings of work when you can reach out to an employee, perhaps at 10 to 4, 10 to 6, 1 to 2 is lunchtime, 6 onwards, maybe you let them be. So I think having those boundaries defined to say, these are the times when I can call you, reach you, access you, WhatsApp, text, or email, if that's okay with you. If I call you, then what's the timeline that you're going to turn around and, kind of so that I know that you're this. And if there is a trust issue, I would say, again, dealing with it very honestly to say, I called you twice, you didn't pick up. And therefore, what's happening? Is there something going on? Can I help you with? Like I can give you, there are multiple times when I've had my team members, direct team members, somebody had an sick parent they needed to take care. Somebody had house duties they needed to take care. Somebody had children. And this is, again, a male employee I'm talking about. We tend to associate children with women. And oh my God, my diversity hat just goes out and flies out. Men have equal responsibility. If they don't share it, that's different, but they have equal responsibility towards children who are at home and need to be tutored. So I think making those boundaries clear and knowing that you expect them of them is again a very transparent and a healthy communication. But I think some of these are very simple tips that hopefully will resonate, and I would say that it's trust building. If you see that an employee is turning around the work, some can do it in 4 hours, some need 10 hours. Don't worry about the rest 4 or 5 hours if your outcome is met. So I think being outcome oriented than being hour oriented is what COVID is teaching us. Because some can do it fast, like I said. So again, different sizes for different people, bringing in their context, listening to them. You will get bored, but I will say repeat the dose till the patient dies is my father's favorite saying. I think he figured I was resilient and he had to say this multiple times for me to get it. But it's kind of stayed on with me, and now I'm my dad's daughter and I continue. Keep life simple, learn by trusting people, and when they know you care, they would want to deliver to you because you care for them. And I think Sureshji and Bhavna have both touched upon these. Don't worry about layers, just reach out. A genuine heart gets a genuine answer. A crooked mind also gets a befitting answer. So you got to know what you're going out. I always say I have a devil and a God button here. Decide what you want to press. You will get your answer equally. I can be very, very difficult to be with. I can be loving and easy and comfortable to be with. Press the button and get the answer. Bhavna, you may not like this part of me. Be always nice. But you know what? I have both sides of me, and I'm happy with my devil side too.
Absolutely. We all have it, Supriya. We have
Thank you.
Inside us. It's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
And people tend to pick your body signals. You can say I love you, they know you don't. So be honest. You don't have to say I hate you. But if you have a trust issue, just say I have a trust issue. I had a trust issue with my employee. I was very, very straight to say I don't know what you're doing. I don't know. But if you're working, you're definitely not working in line with my priorities. So maybe it's not work, it's priority alignment. So please work with me on that. Within a few weeks, we had it sorted, and the employee is as wonderful as one can be. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Thank you for explaining it very lucid. Thank you.
Tanya, can I come in at this? I have one, in the last 60 days as buying agents, we all work with teams. And what I have found is very important to teach people discipline and how to cope with discipline when working in homes. Very often people live in very small environments. And to have old parents or parents, children, wives asking them for something, husbands asking them for something, it becomes very difficult to disassociate from your home duties or personal duties to work duties. And you get waylaid. When you leave for work, everybody knows you've left for work. But when you are in a corner and you are working, you are visible. And people ask your time, they ask your presence in their life because they need you at that very moment in time. And it's very important to have discussions with your employees to set discipline lines in their families when they are working. If there's that one corner and they're going to be working that 1 hour, they need to teach their families also that time is their office and they are not physically available to them. And this takes time because it's a cultural issue with us. When we are there, we are expected to be available to our families. And I think our teams are finding it difficult, but they have to learn that when we are working in this environment of home, as employers, I feel it's very important to teach teams empathetically the need for discipline.
Ruma, I love what you said. And honestly,
that's what Rumaji, you elaborated it very beautifully. But I wanted to say was that professionally and culturally, we are very different from the West, and we have very different mindsets of being at work. So the moment you put your gear on to go to work, that's when your professionalism comes into light. And when you're working from home, you tend to take advantage of time, situation, make you know, etc., etc. We all know of those things. So I think it's more about
Tanya, you have to teach them this. They have learned, listen, Tanya, your teams and all of us have learned to behave in a certain way with long years of being in that particular way. Overnight, they cannot suddenly change that mindset. So a new form of discipline has to be taught, and it is not about the East and the West culture of how we work. It is to work effectively and to learn the discipline of working effectively. And that
Right.
needs time.
That's
So
right.
our West friends and partners have to also learn that in this environment, it needs time. What an email would have been done in 1 hour maybe requires 5.
Right. True.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rumaji. Thank you for answering the question. I think everybody's got a lot of perspectives today. Unfortunately, all the 3 panelists have to leave now, so we won't be able to continue with the Q&A. I've got messages from all of 3 of them asking that they need to exit. So we're going to close the session today. Definitely, if there are any other questions that the attendees have, you can email it to us and we can make sure that our panelist answers them privately and take them on. Absolutely loved having all 3 of you on board today. Supriya, Sureshji, Bhavna. It was a very exciting session. I think our attendees today are going back with a lot of food for thought. So thank you all for coming in today. Thank you all the attendees for being with us here today. And we will be in touch with you with many more such sessions. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
Suresh, we'll see you on the 4th of June.
Yeah.
And
And,
posting the
you
video
know,
on our website. Thank you, guys.
it's been a great
Thank you
honor
so
to,
much.
speak to all of you. Thank you, Achal, for the opportunity. And great meeting you all, Supriya, Bhavna, Manoj,
Thank
Christine.
you, sir.
Have a great
Yes,
day.
lovely
and-
meeting.
Yeah.
Pleasure meeting everyone. Thank you for the
Bye.
opportunity.
Suresh,
Anshul.
Bhavna,
Thank you.
so
Thank
much.
you for
Have a great day,
being
everyone.
here.
Have a good
Thank you so
afternoon and a
much.
great weekend, everybody. Take care.
Thanks a lot.